everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
It's the second week of part 2 of the Multi-Topic Extravaganza.
Man, that's like
right.
2 2s in a row.
Yeah, I know, it's nuts.
It's almost like a dress for a ballerina.
Or Two-Face.
Or 2 shelves of Two-Face.
That's right. So, yeah, this is once again the second batch of Q&As of Multi-Topic Extravaganza, and we're doing several half-hour episodes of this until we get through all the questions. So, or a lot of the questions. Once again, we won't necessarily get to everyone's question. We're going to do our best to talk about the ones that we think we can do on this. Some things we might skip if we want to do a full show on it later on. And if you've asked several questions, we may not get to all of them. So anyway. If you ever ask a question on this, and when we get done with the whole batch, probably 4 or 5 videos, and we didn't get to yours, and you want to ask us if we're going to, feel free to send us a message. But we're not going to be able to get to everything because there are quite a few things, and not all of them fit for this. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Vince, we're still dealing with some old questions from the first time around that we were doing this. So
there's a cue.
So let's knock as many of these out as we can, and hopefully next time we can start getting to some of the newer questions. Here
There's
we
a cue
go.
that's not on Star Trek.
Or Bond. Vince, Excelsior Production 7 asks, do you think the Bat family works in today's continuity, as Batman is often viewed more as a loner?
I think that's a terrific point. That's a question that I've kind of debated with myself several times. I like hearing about the Bat family. I like hearing about Nightwing and Huntress, and I like to see where they take Robin on occasion. The trouble is that Batman, he doesn't necessarily make sense with Robin anymore. I mean, he made sense at one point, and I think that he could make sense again. But if Damian is any indication of how Robin has to be in order to work with Batman, then no, the Bat family doesn't work with Batman.
I think it's a similar question to does the Bat family work in Nolan's universe? Because a lot of people consider Nolan to be kind of the modern Batman. Of course, there are a lot of other modern Batman. We have comic books, but it is a really interesting question because I don't think that all of that would work very well in those movies. We talked about that before, but I don't want to lose it from comics either. So yeah, I think that there's always a very difficult line you're straddling where how can Batman be a loner but then have a sidekick, much less multiple sidekicks, and then taking that even into Batman Incorporated, where it's like he's not a loner anymore. He wants the whole world to be Batman. not that I mean and of course we're into the New 52 now, but Batman Incorporated is coming back, so that book's getting wrapped up, but it's still there, so...
I'm sort of a proponent of the idea that Batman doesn't necessarily have to be one way in modern comics.
Exactly.
I mean, if they're going to publish 18 Bat books a month, they might as well, and I'm exaggerating, but whatever, they might as well give him different characterization so you're not reading the same dang thing.
By the way, let me pause and say that there is a storm happening outside, so if you hear the apocalypse behind the camera, that's what's going on there. We'll try to speak up!
Yay!
Well, you want to move on?
Sure.
Oh.
Moving on, like Marty Robbins. Look it up. Move on. I'm moving on.
Okay, Divot22, this is a writing question, he says. What makes a story/characters memorable and/or timeless? That's probably more of a full topic kind of question, but...
Yeah, we can shortly address it here.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I have a friend who told me that this movie is great. And I said, no, it sucks. It's awful. The Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses are terrible movies. Both of them, in my opinion. And his response was, but the characters are so cool. And then I stopped and thought about it and went, well, sure. Now, I think my real question here is timeless. I think a character being memorable and timeless are two completely separate things, and I'm sort of addressing the memorable thing here.
I think they kind of are too. I mean, timeless. In my mind, well, there's two definitions of timeless in my head. One is one is memorable. It's regardless of what the time was that the character was in and whether he's dated. He still resonates throughout time. You know what I'm saying? Like Doc Brown and Marty McFly. These are characters that we're likely to remember the decades past Back to the Future. What? You don't agree?
Regardless of what time period they're in.
Okay, that's a bad example because they have a time machine.
Doctor Who is timeless too.
But this is an extremely 80s,
Doctor Who is timeless.
This is an extremely 80s thing, and yet we remember them. I would say Sherlock Holmes, timeless character, only exists in the 19th century, but he's a timeless character.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think that characters. I think people get new life breathed. Let me rephrase. I think characters get new life breathed into them all the time, and as long as that character has somewhere to go that modern audiences and future audiences can latch onto and adapt to their way of thinking, however jaded or free floating it might be, free floating vapor. But
when he started this off saying this is a writing question, I do feel the need to suggest that I don't think you can do this on purpose. I don't think it's possible to go, I'm going to write a character that's going to resonate throughout time. That everyone's going to remember, and Bill Finger and Bob Kane had no idea that Batman was going to last decades and decades and decades, 75 plus years now. They had no idea that was going to happen. They were just making a character and making stories because they had a job to do. You know what I'm saying? So just in the sense of this as a writing question, you can't know this is going to happen.
I think I'm coining this. So if so, yay for me, but if not, yay for the other guy. But it's sort of a self-defeating prophecy, you know what I mean? You're going out there and you're saying, I'm going to achieve happiness, or I'm going to write the great American novel, as Stan Lee said he was going to do, but of course he didn't. But what he did do is create several extremely memorable characters.
Right.
So, that wasn't his intent. He was just trying to sell comics.
What are you talking about? The Galactus trilogy is totally the great American novel. I don't care what anybody else says. That's one of the greatest pieces of literature ever written, dude. But in all seriousness, it is pretty good. Bad Influence Man. Wow, is that a supervillain or a superhero? I wonder. Bad Influence Man. Isn't that great? That's his name. That's his name. Yeah, Bad Influence Man.
How's that a question?
I'm sorry, you're not looking at this. What are some of your favorite or least favorite third act character additions to long-running comics? By third act additions, I mean characters that are introduced into series late in their runs, at least 20 plus years, that become lasting and important in that already established stories such as Venom or Bane. What, in your opinion, makes for a good later story character addition? That's a great question. Again, I think there might be a video on that. That's really cool. Do you have any?
I have a short answer, but I don't have a good example.
Okay, go ahead.
When you make a character who's not just trying to make a freak of the week, when you sit down and say, I want to make a character who's interesting. What can we make this Batman villain interesting with? No, you can't do that. You have to create a good story where this character is born out of, and then you get somebody like Hush or something.
Although I would make the case that a lot of Batman's earlier villains, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and I think
when you say maybe they just ran the gambit too fast. There was not until years down the road the definitive Riddler story or the definitive Two-Face story, right?
This guy didn't get cool to the 80s.
I've talked about this recently with Ghost Rider. There's not really a definitive Ghost Rider story, or at least not very many. And I'm not a big Ghost Rider reader, but people I know that like Ghost Rider say he's kind of like Iron Man used to be. I mean, all the now the big giant awesome Iron Man story arcs besides Demon in a Bottle are nearly post the movie. But when you get to Ghost Rider, it's like, well, no, he's just a really cool looking flaming skull with a head. He's not really he survived because he visually looks awesome, So yeah.
I think
that's
that
really
sometimes interesting characters are made, and that doesn't necessarily make them good additions. So that's my thought. I don't know. I don't necessarily think Hush is the greatest. I just use him as an example.
That's fair. I could see why you'd say that. I think as much as I still kind of like him, I think perhaps Doomsday fits in that category. I think that's fair, and because again, you're talking about a big plot device. He was created to do a thing, and then they kept bringing him back because that arc was popular. So I don't have a problem as much with some other people with. That wasn't a sentence. I don't have a problem as much as other people with Doomsday in the story he was presented in, but he got sillier and sillier. He should have never been brought back over and over again. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, maybe part of the problem is characters who were okay in the story they were in, but then they got overused. He mentioned Venom. That was a problem for a while, actually for a long while. Eddie Brock as Venom never worked in his own books ever. I mean, he's they tried to make him an anti-hero, but he was always better as a villain. I mean, like Venom in his own book never worked until he got with somebody that he could be a hero with. So I think Venom is a really good example of that. I think he's one of the only examples where it was a problem and then they fixed it. I kind of hope that they keep him the way he is right now for a long time, if they can,
Sometimes they come up with cool characters, and that's all it is a cool character with sort of a half, I can't say that word, with a sort of a half-formed storyline, and then people hit the ground running and really make that interesting guy interesting. So
I think there's a lot more that we could say about that, but let's move on. That's a really great question, though. Thanks a lot. Let's see... Sorry. I don't know if we can say anything about this right now, but Mr. Effect Films, when should one movie become a trilogy or a movie with a sequel?
After the second movie.
That's a good point. Don't you feel like this question is almost more like, when should it not happen? You know what I mean? It almost sounds like there's a point being made with the question where it seems like these days and this is kind of true. It seems like these days if a movie is popular, it's going to have sequels whether it merits sequels or not. So when does it merit them? That's a great question.
I think I have an answer to this. Actually.
Go ahead.
I think if you've planned out 3 movies to make your point, if you have planned out 3 movies to it's like, this is what I need to fully give this character his due, then that's what's going to happen. Now, there are times where people are like, I'm only going to make 3 movies because I want to make a trilogy, and that's a really strange way to go. I mean, if you could make a quadrilogy or even more, I mean, why not keep going?
Well, I think it depends on how you're making them. Also, I don't think it's true that, not that you said this, but I don't think it's true that the only time we've had good sequels is when they were planned from the beginning.
Sure.
I know I'm somewhat in the minority, but I like Back to the Future too. That was never planned as a trilogy. They didn't even know if the first movie was going to make any money, and then they kept making them after that. And I like the sequels. So I'm just saying that there are good, Aliens is a great movie. They didn't know that was going to happen.
That's the thing, is that when I look at a movie trilogy like Back to the Future, it doesn't occur to me that it's even a trilogy, because it's not a complete storyline necessarily.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
It's like,
well, these days we use that term really loosely, right? I mean, the Star Wars trilogy feels like an actual trilogy. It leads from one to another to another. Now, the first movie stands fine on its own, but I mean, like, it really, versus the new trilogy, where there's a whole lot of years, there's a whole lot of gap in between each of these movies. It doesn't really feel like a trilogy, really. I mean, you could argue, okay, well, it's Anakin Skywalker's whole life before he becomes Darth Vader, so maybe in that sense it kind of is. But I'm just saying that, like, it feels much more disconnected. Lord of the Rings is, like, the best example I can think of a real honest-to-God trilogy. Not only is the entire story those 3 movies, but they filmed them all at the same time. You know what I mean? They actually made it like a 12-hour film.
I think Hollywood sort of has this hysteria, and it's called trilogies. And they think we can only make 3 movies of this particular type before we have to cut it and start again. So, why can't everything be James, or not everything, but why can't we just make it James Bond, and every so often, if we're going to make umpteen million movies starring the same guy, and then we're going to stop and, do a different one. I mean, you can have a character that keeps going, and I don't think it needs to be a trilogy. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
And I also would say that sometimes there's a really great movie, and we shouldn't tarnish it by making more if we don't have the right ideas for more. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. All right, next question. Christopher J. McBride asks, where do we draw the line between magic and superpowers?
Doctor Strange. He decides it, and then he gets his chalk out, and he draws the line.
I think it just depends on.
Squiggly.
Well, to be more serious, I think or serious at all. I think it somewhat depends on just the continuity, right? Different writers like to play with this in different ways, and a lot of time when we're talking about comic books, this is a broad spanning question, so we seem to default to comics, but this is about all kinds of things. But it seems like a lot of time in comic books, it just depends on who's writing, and they like to deal with that question a lot. It's fun to play with. It's like sometimes they'll be really broad in how they write this, and they'll say, well, it feels like magic, but it's actually science because somebody knows how it works. I just don't. I'm just not the person who knows. You know what I mean? Things like that. But I mean, like, I think when you're talking about superpowers, it kind of just depends on how they got them. You know, if it's radiation, it's a superpower. It's a scientific superpower. You know that sort of
magical
that sort of thing. But you can have magical superpowers too.
I think the two best examples here are two guys who have an extremely similar power set: Captain Marvel and Superman. And Captain Marvel obviously has magical superpowers bestowed by gods, and Superman has scientific superpowers that he gets from the sun. I mean,
maybe that actually is the best line to draw, you know, the best standards, and everybody else falls in between somewhere.
I think it's all about your premise, your concept, as opposed to actually trying to justify things. I don't think you really have to come up with a scientific reason that a guy can shoot webs from his wrists. I
don't think you do either, and I think
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's true. On the other hand, I like how Stanley did it better, and only because in that case, not because if the organic webs had always been there, it's not like I wouldn't have necessarily bought that as plausible. The same writer came up with a way of flying by spinning a hammer in the air. Okay, I mean, like, this would have been okay, but the thing with Spider-Man is the web shooters are better simply because it gives him sciencey things to do. And Peter Parker is supposed to be a scientist, so the fact that he has to add things to his costume scientifically to make his power set more powerful was always a good character thing. So that's why it's better for that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
To my understanding, in Ultimates right now, Ultimates as it's called, Thor has lost his abilities.
I'm sorry, I believe that requires a facepalm. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Thor has lost his abilities. He's lost his ability to use his guardian magic. And
oh, really? Okay.
Tony Stark came up with a suit for him to make him do something like it.
Oh, cool.
So I could be wrong about that, but that's the way I understood it. I feel like it's a little convoluted right now to fully understand that series. But I don't have a problem with it. I think science can replicate magic, and magic can replicate science. Yay.
Punk Holmes asks, what's your opinion on George Lucas and the changes he's made to his movies?
I would punk him in the face, Holmes. Anyway.
I talked about this a little bit. I'm not real happy with it at all. For me, it's less of a problem that I'm right in line with Mr. Fusion. He did a video on this, and I'm right in line with him. It's not so much that it's irritating that he keeps changing the movies, although it kind of is, just because it does feel like just a giant money ploy. But what's more irritating is that while he's doing that, he's trying more and more to get people to forget about the originals, and he's trying to get rid of the originals as much as possible. I've heard things, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard things about how, like, he's been doing his best to not let any of the old masters get made into DVDs, so that eventually the VHS tapes will all wear out and nobody can ever see the originals the way that they were. Things like that. I'm fuzzy on the details because I thought that there was a DVD set where on the back of the DVDs they had the originals, and I've heard that that's not quite what people are wanting, because they're just copies from the VHSs, so we don't have digitally mastered, so we don't have mastered ones, things like, anyway, whatever. But the long and short of it is, it's okay if he wants to keep messing with his movies, but I don't think his heart is in the right place. That's what I'm saying.
I find it irritating that anybody would go back and add, like think if they were to take the original Aliens movies and try to add CGI to them, and take Blade Runner and try to add CGI, and quit ruining things that I like. Let things stand for what they are.
Well, that's my question, though. Does it ruin it because it looks worse, or does it ruin it because you want it to be what it was? I mean, like,
I think it's sort of taking away the public's view of puppets and miniatures and things that look more visceral than CGI. I think it's trying to take away its history,
right? I mean, yeah. like these things change the way we make film. Why would we go back and change them with the technology we have now because of them? I mean, like kids growing up, people in film school and stuff, I mean, need to see the progression, we need to see how we got to where we got. And also, we need to quit acting like CG is just better because it's CG, because it's not always true. Very often it's not true.
And there's nothing wrong with using your imagination. I mean, why not watch the original Dawn of the Dead and say, oh, those guys are zombies? Well, no, they're not zombies because their heads aren't falling off and their noses haven't rotted off. It's not like Walking Dead. It's not. It was made in the 70s. Listen to the story. The story is what makes it worthwhile.
Magpie2541, do Americans marginalize non-American films?
Yes. that's the shortest answer I can give you.
Do you marginalize non-American films?
I try not to.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. I have seen...
Don't we get so used to the way we make films in America, though, that sometimes we're automatically put off by foreign films on accident, where it's just like, we're depending on what it is, it kind of goes against our sensibilities, and we're just like, I'm not used to this, I don't know how to watch this movie.
I think people forget that movies are even made in other countries. Like, Norway made a movie?
I think you're right.
What? Wait, Norway's a country? Is it in America? No. There are places that have their own film, like the BBC is sort of making an impression on America now, and I'm, entirely
I support it too, Vince.
Entirely in support of that, and that makes me happy. I mean, I don't mind watching subtitles on a movie. In fact, sometimes when it has an American dub, it kind of sucks. But I forget the name. Hard Boiled? Is that the name of that movie?
That's the name of a movie. I've never seen it, so I don't know.
Well, I couldn't remember if that was the name of the movie or the video game. I think it's a Chinese movie.
I don't think Hard Boiled is a video game. I know it's a.
They made a sequel to one of the movie. I think the video game's called Stranglehold. And it's supposed to be a sequel to Hard Boiled.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that. I've heard of Stranglehold. I didn't realize that it was a sequel to a movie.
Now I could have my all this stuff could be entirely off. People are like, why is he talking about that movie that was made in Texas? But then I'll be like, I don't know things. Please don't judge me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You've lost me. I have no idea what we're talking about.
Anyway, there's a terrific foreign film made in an Asian country that they had subtitles on, and it was great. And then you watch it with dubs, and it's awful. The voices are so weird with the dubs. Anyway, please continue.
But that's a really good question, a really good point. It absolutely does happen, and I think that part of the reason is because it's easy for Americans to see America as the center of the universe because when they do look at other countries, they see so many American films dubbed into other languages, and they see fans of a whole lot of American things in other countries. In America, we get really proud of the things that we've made that the whole world likes. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, we'll say things like nearly every country has Star Trek fans, nearly every country has Batman fans, and we're proud of this, and we don't think so much about it the other direction. You know what I mean? Like it's not that it doesn't happen, but it's just that we kind of, it's easy for Americans to see America as the universe, which is wrong. And of course, it's not like we're not influenced by other countries. We have to be. You know why? Because we started with a bunch of immigrants. You know what I'm saying? So there you go.
I think I read somewhere that America's largest export is its entertainment. So I forget where I read that, but
a lot of by the way, a lot of films in theaters have been saved monetarily by releases around the world. You know what I mean? Where like maybe they bombed here, but they did better in other places, and so they made their money back. That happens all the time.
I find myself, instead of forgetting that other countries make movies, I find myself more forgetting that other movies or other countries are interested in things in America. So, like, the Stray Cats, I'm like, why doesn't anybody know who the Stray Cats are? And then I went, oh, they had a huge release of most of their albums in Europe. And I said, well, never mind.
What's really
That's
weird
where
is
they were
when
in the
you
80s and 90s.
Yeah, what's really weird is with music, when you get like a one-hit wonder here, but then they were huge in some other countries. So they've got like 50 songs in another country that play on the radio all the time, but then here there's the one everybody knows and then nothing else. You know, back in the 90s, Natalie Imbruglia was that way. I don't remember what country she was from, but there she had a bunch of hits. Here,
I don't know who that is.
Here she had one. Torn was her song.
Oh,
and that's what she had, and nobody knew anything else she made. And I've heard some of her other music, and she's actually pretty good. But all we ever heard was Torn. It was all over the radio, so we all got sick of it. All right, this one is from. No, I'm not still trapped in the 90s. No, of course not. Mediascopo review. Over the years, there have been several different people in the role of Robin. True. And I was wondering, what is your favorite Robin, and why, Vince?
Oh, man. I am not going to choose Tim Drake because I prefer... Wait, I am going to choose Tim Drake. I'm not going to choose Dick Grayson because I prefer him as Nightwing.
Me too.
But he's a much more cool Nightwing than he is Robin.
I agree.
I am going to choose Tim Drake because as crude as some people found Identity Crisis, that was such an amazing moment. Like such a terrible moment for him, but such a like heart-wrenchingly human moment for him when his father dies.
Mm-hmm.
So Tim Drake's my favorite. I mean, not that the cartoon show notwithstanding, but Tim Drake's my favorite.
And I love Tim Drake too. He's also my choice. I've never seen a kid character in comics who was made more adult as a teenager, and I bought it, than Tim Drake. And that's what I love about him. And that goes right into Red Robin. If you've never read any Red Robin, you should go back and look at it, because you see him while Bruce Wayne is apparently dead. He's trapped back in time, but he's apparently dead. You see Tim Drake taking over Wayne Enterprises and being having to run this multi-billion-dollar corporation at 17 years old, and he's taken Wayne as his last name, and everybody considers him Bruce Wayne's son. And then he's Red Robin on the side, and he's doing all these extremely impressive things to try to manipulate Gotham into being less of a crime-ridden state. It's really fantastic. Tim Drake is a remarkable character.
Every other Robin sort of seems forced into Batman's shoes.
A little
except
bit.
Except for Tim Drake.
Yeah. And
not Tim Drake. I keep saying that. Dick Grayson!
Yeah, all right. Anyway.
The other guy.
Simply Woodenly, what is your favorite J.J. Abrams TV show or movie? I'm going to say Lost. I love Lost. It's one of my favorite things. That's what I'm going to say.
Star Trek.
But you haven't seen a lot of Abrams,
No, I watched a little bit of Lost. I thought it was okay. I saw Cloverfield and thought it was crap.
Yeah, I know you didn't like Cloverfield.
I saw Star Trek and thought it was fun, so Star Trek's my choice.
I liked Cloverfield quite a bit the first time I saw it, and then I didn't like it as much the second time, and then recently I saw Chronicle, and now I don't like it nearly as much. Okay!
There's a lot of logistical problems I have with that movie. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. Anyway.
Have you seen Chronicle?
No, not Chronicle. I'm talking about...
okay.
I don't have a problem with Chronicle, because I haven't seen it. I'm talking about Cloverfield. I still would be
interested to see what you think of that. I think you might enjoy it. Or maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens.
All right. Sorry. I'm trying to find a good question here. Really should have looked at these before we started. Do you think, this is Invincible Rodan 101, do you think Bane is too gimmicky because he was made just for the purpose of breaking Batman's back? Good question. This goes back to what we were talking about earlier, doesn't it? About characters who were kind of second or third string characters brought in way later. Yeah, that was the reason Bane was brought in, and he's not a useless character because of what people did with him later. And he's not just a plot device in that either, because he's a very compelling character in Nightfall. I mean, the difference between him and Doomsday is that Doomsday is a lumbering lack of character who just is there to kill Superman and get killed kind of at the same time, kind of. But Bane, when Bane was invented, he was invented as a character who was worthy of breaking Batman's back. It was almost like Doomsday is the yin to his yang. It's like Doomsday had to be a force of nature, because intellect didn't seem to be able to do it to kill Superman unless it involved kryptonite, and they didn't want to kill him with kryptonite. But Bane, it's his intellect that gets into a place where he's able to break Batman's back. So I never thought that he was a gimmick.
I've not read Nightfall. I think as long as the story's...
Moment of silence?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Crickets. And then Jimmy...
No, I'm not making fun of you, but you should. Yeah, I'll lend it to you.
So my opinion is, as long as Nightfall's a worthy story...
Captain Logan's lending you something.
Hang on. Let me lend you this stuff.
Anyway. Well, hey, let's do a couple more real quick, shall we?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I totally interrupted that thought. Did you have more to say? Because that was really...
I guess my point was that, there's nothing wrong with inventing a character who does something significant to a pre-existing character, as long as the story's good.
And I also don't think it's bad if a character was brought in as a plot device and then they did something cool with him later that made him a more, well-rounded character. Why not? That's awesome. I mean, we saw Jeff Johns do that with Flash some, where he would take a bad guy who seemed kind of silly and then give him this amazing backstory and turning him into something more compelling. Ninten Titan. Is it right for schools to ban books like Catcher in the Rye or To Kill a Mockingbird for profanity and mature/serious topics? Vince?
Wait, people are banning To Kill a Mockingbird? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, really?
What?
That's news to me.
That's ridiculous. Well,
I agree.
No, it's not right for that. I think, actually, I had to write something on this recently.
Oh, cool.
So that's kind of fun.
Do you have the paper? Are you going to read it?
It's saved on my computer.
Okay.
But essentially my opinion after doing a little bit of research on the topic was that I don't think that they should ban it from libraries. Like a school library, I think they should allow, like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein has been banned for cruelty. Things
Are
like that.
you serious?
Yeah. Not wholesale, but some places have argued that they want Mary Shelley's Frankenstein banned because the characters are so cruel to each other.
That's insane.
Yeah. And my argument was, kids are reading this stuff, they're seeing this act of cruelty, but they're also seeing these people paying for the acts of cruelty that they do. Nobody ends up happy in that book that does anything cruel to another person. In fact, people that are connected to... Anyway, so that was... People try to get those things banned. I think you should stick that stuff in the library. Make it available to kids. And have a librarian there who knows something that can help guide kids. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that you should be very picky about what you require the students to read in English class.
Picky how?
How
do you censor it? How do you decide what they should read and what they shouldn't read, Vince?
If the community has a general outcry, if everybody in that community has a problem with it, I would see that, okay, we're going to put them in the library. If you kids want to read it, that's fine.
Boy, I'm not sure I would even go that far. The first thing I would say is before... I don't know. I'm strongly opinionated on this. Maybe I shouldn't even weigh in on this.
No, that's all right. I'm not saying that I necessarily believe that
no.
it's moral.
I'm not going to... Yeah, no. I don't mean like I'm going to argue with you and get in a big fight with you. I'm just like, I'm kind of bubbling right now. This sort of thing bugs me. Okay, here's the thing. I think that if I'm going to go this far. I think that if that many people in a community think that a book needs to get banned, especially if it's a book that's been in a curriculum for years and years and years, every single one of them must read it first. I don't think that happens. I think a lot of the time we don't have any oversight on this. These people just see the title of something, or they think they know what something is about because they've been told about it before or something. They don't really know what the content is. You can't just say because this word is in a book, or because this concept is in a book, or because somebody hits another person in a book, then our kids shouldn't look at it. Because you cannot, this is turning into a rant, you cannot stop bad things from happening with kids, okay? It's going to. Kids are going to get in fights. Kids are going to say bad things to each other. They're going to pick these things up from one place or another. You can't just start banning books and stopping teachers from teaching certain things just because you want to try to make it to where kids don't know about bad things. That's ridiculous. It's going to happen. You can't do that. So, like you said, you simply give them things where bad things happen, and then there are consequences for those actions. The way you teach kids how to not do stupid things is to show why it's a bad idea to do stupid things.
Yeah, this sort of goes back to the the argument between. I can't believe I'm going to do this. This sort of goes back to the argument between Socrates and Aristotle.
Okay, all right.
Where Socrates says you cannot. It is bad for you to watch to watch plays and read things of that kind. You should be very realistic and very rational and use your reason. And Aristotle says, no, go watch these things. You are living more life. If you read something, if you watch something, whatever, you get these moral lessons from these characters. And it is not necessarily a moral lesson, but provided something is written with the idea of realism in mind, you can get some kind of catharsis from it. You will live more life through fiction than you would through your own experience, and you will live it faster.
And a lot of the stories are there to make points and get people to think about things. Fables and nursery rhymes and things like that. How many of those have like really scary and like violent things in them. You know what I mean? Where wolves eating children and kids being thrown in stoves and stuff like that. That kind of stuff. Decades and centuries ago were considered wholesome and good for kids. Why? Because it taught them moral lessons. Yeah.
The boy who cried wolf. I mean, somebody gets eaten by a wolf.
Yeah. Bad things happen to that kid. You know what that tells us? Not to freaking do that.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea. Anyway, I mean, how are you supposed to teach people consequences if you never show them the consequences? Anyway, well, thanks a lot for watching Geeks and Not Nerds. Week 2 of the second multi-topic extravaganza. Wow, got a little crazy there at the end. I can't believe that's the topic that we left off on, but that kind of thing bothers me. It makes me angry, Vince.
I think it's also important to say that just because an entire an entire community cries out against having their kids read a particular book, it could also be mob mentality, which I'm not cool with.
No, and I would assume that it is mob. That's the reason I said they should all have to frickin' read it.
So, like, oh, somebody used the N-word. It's Huck Finn. The character learns about treating people like people.
Yeah.
Of course they use the N-word.
You have to have one thing before you have another. You can't just read a book that's one page and says, don't call people names. It's like, oh man, they've learned their lesson because they read a book that told people not to call people names. Anyway.
Reading a book, don't call people names. Seriously, don't do that.
Don't do it.
You got the point yet?
The top.
The end.
The top of the page is like, don't do that.
That's right.
Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. If you have any other questions that you'd like us to try to tackle in the multi-topic extravaganza, feel free to leave those in the comments. We'll do this for another 2-3 weeks at least, and we'll see you next time. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince, reminding you to support your local multi-topic extravaganza!
Yeah, and comic store and library.
That too.
Yeah. Anyway.
And if your high school is banning books, go buy books and then stick them in the library somewhere. Hide them. Be like, they will never find Frankenstein under F.
Yeah, let's start some guerrilla warfare on the public school system right here.
Where'd all these books come from? And how did we suddenly get a large porn collection in our library? Don't do porn.
Yeah, don't do anything Vince just said. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you next time. See you later. Bye.
That was really funny if I.